everyone. I hope you're all well. Thank you for joining us in this session today. My name is Nicole Nyokabi. I'm the General Manager of Co-Create Advertising, and I serve in the Uganda Advertising Association as a Secretary General, and was also the chair of the Silverback Awards Committee last year. Now, the reason why we are here today is because of the Young Silverback competition. The Young Silverback competition is one of the arms or the pillars of the Silverback Awards. And the main aim of the Young Silverback competition is to give real life experience to young people, as in no one leaves campus knowing what is on ground as far as advertising is concerned. And the aim of this was to make sure that by the time you leave, you are ready to go into the market, or rather, the young people are ready to go into the market. They have already experienced what it means to tackle a brief. These are things that we never learn in campus. We are only given coursework, we're not given briefs. So at the end of the day, once once they have learned how to tackle a brief, they are also identified by people who can be their future employers. And today we are going to be joined by some of our past judges to give feedback to these young creatives for them to hear what they did well, what needs improvement, and what they just need to throw out and change totally. Thank you. Back to you, Petra.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole. As Nicole has just said, today's session is really about unpacking what really stood out to the judges, what held some entries back, and most importantly, how can we bounce back this year with the awards or the competitions for this year. I'm happy to report that I am also a Young Silverback winner from the 2024 edition under the peer category with my twin flame, my partner. She should be on call. So this feedback session is much as my time was about a year ago. I'm still probably going to pick something from this. So I'm really, really excited. So just to introduce our judges, we have quite the maestros on call and quite the judges that went through your work and are going to be able to give you the feedback. I'll start with our first judge, who is an award-winning all-round creative with a passionate bias towards storytelling. And with over 10 years experience crafting campaigns for the health, FMCG, finance, and telecom sectors across sub-Saharan Africa, please welcome creative lead at Fireworks Advertising and winner of Silverbacks and Picture Awards, Adonia Waibali. And our next, you're welcome, Adonia. Our next judge, we're honored to have a leader who has shaped iconic brands like Coca-Cola, Guinness, and Facebook Africa, having recently served as an international juror at the LUMM Awards in Geneva, Switzerland. He was named the 2025 Creative Director of the Year after leading his team to a Grand Prix at the Silverback Awards. He has also served as jury president for the Young Silverback Awards in 2024. Fun fact, he is the one who awarded us our medals in 2024 at Serena. So I'm really pleased to have you on the call, Peter. So please welcome the creative director at Mad Macan, Uganda. That's Peter Kazibwe. Peter, you're welcome on the call. Then third is our judge, who is a visual artist and whose career spans the heights of both agency, world, and academia. A former art director at GQ Saatchi & Saatchi at Mad Macan. She currently serves as a lecturer at Makerere University, where she's completing her PhD research in visual communication strategies. Please welcome Annette Seba. You're welcome to the call. And then lastly, our last judge is Patience Okubal, who serves as a business development and client service officer at Real Analytics Uganda, where she leads market prospecting and strategic negotiations. Her career spans the banking, manufacturing, and hospitality sectors, including roles as a relationship officer at Equity Bank and a finance and administration officer at Landmark Millers. So Patience, we are happy to have you on the call so that we have a little bit of a perspective from the client side. So as Nicole mentioned, we're really now getting into unpacking what worked, what didn't work, and how we can, come back stronger for the next competition. So I'll just dive in straight into the questions of the judges, and I'll start with Peter. Peter, maybe you can unmute all and also show your video and just tell us from a creative director's perspective, what stood out in the strongest entries? What separated a good idea from an award-winning idea? Oh, and also as the judges are speaking, you can drop your questions in the chat box and we'll pick them up. Thank you. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Petra. Good morning to you, and thanks for that beautiful introduction. Good morning to our young silverbacks, those that are yet to participate and those that participated in the past. You're most welcome to this session. I'm happy to be the first respondent to the questions that are being shared today. I'd like to say from I think the past Young Silverbacks award session that the one thing that about them, especially I'll speak about the one in 2024 where I was the juror president, is that the teams were as the teams were presenting live, because the nature of the presentations, we had them live, but then we also had them making presentations on their screen. So while they were projecting on the screen, the judges were experiencing two things at the same time. This was how well the idea was being explained and how well it came to life visually. And you could very quickly see the difference between a good idea and a truly strong one. And for me, I'd like to say that the strongest presentations had very clear thinking. The journey from the insight felt very natural as they spoke. The visuals appeared, and then this also helped us sort of connect everything together nicely. So it was easy to understand the story. You know, sometimes you'd see a team present, and within the first minute, you could already sense that the idea they have has a lot of strength in it. And then the other thing that stood out is that the best ideas were actually quite simple. They didn't try to impress us with complexity. The thinking was sharp, and the visuals on the screen also helped us reinforce that thinking. If I can recall in 2024, I remember a few moments where the judges, we just looked at each other for a moment and smiled. And those are the moments where you could tell that the judges are thinking, okay, that's a very strong idea. You know, so for me, the difference is quite simple. A good idea makes sense when it's explained, and an award-winning idea works even before it's fully explained. You know, the moment you see it on the screen, you already feel the power of it. So I'd like to say that that is where the difference comes in from, and you can easily tell a good idea from an award-winning idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I think this easily fits into the next question that I'll pose to Adonia. You know, you've spoken about how an award-winning idea works even before it's explained. So this goes into the thinking that was behind. So Adonia, how important is strategy versus creativity in competitions like this? You know, what did the top entries that you surfaced get right in terms of their idea development and storytelling? Because I think once that has come out, then it's easier for the idea to literally sell itself because it has somewhat where it has come from. There's a strategy. So how important would you say the strategy is versus the creativity?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Petra. And I think I just have to say that it's a privilege to be here to share knowledge that some of us have been, blessed enough to have received down from, the legends before us. And to pass that on is really such an honor. To answer your question, for a lot of people, and maybe for the young people, strategy is something that you learn much later on. And I don't think it's something that we teach much sooner as careers are developing. But for most creatives, maybe it's something that we learn much later, but for most creatives, it's a typical case of, chicken and the egg, what should come first? Is it the egg or is it the chicken? But creativity is most effective when it's birthed from strategy, when it has that golden thread going back to the thinking, going back to the insight, going back to the consumer problem. So everything about strategy must work in unison to be able to deliver a compelling campaign or even a very, very, an idea that is rooted in something that's real. So when an idea or story is aligned to the overall strategy, the overall thinking, that is when we begin to see a connection, the connection for the brand to a consumer, the connection of a campaign to a consumer. And that thing that puts consumer, brand, and idea or campaign into a single space. And that's very important because that is when we actually see impact, for campaigns. That's when, campaigns begin to connect and become meaningful. So we did see a lot of young people present very, very exciting ideas. Some, I would say about 70% were very, very strong ideas, but lacked that backing or strategy. And, without a strong strategy, then you fail to see how the idea transfers, from medium to medium, but also the longevity of the idea or the campaign also begins to fall flat. But overall, I think there were very, very exciting submissions. Just a few things to really, really work around, especially, where does strategy start from or what comes first? And I think if I haven't answered that question directly, for any creative doing a campaign, strategy and thinking have to come first. We have a policy at Fireworks where we say we spend 70% of our time conceptualizing thinking and 30% executing. When your strategy is solid, when the idea is solid, the execution becomes very, very smooth and seamless. Back to you, Petra.
Thank you, Adoni. I think that's really well said, because when your strategy and thinking has come through well, it's easy to execute your ideas. So from then, I'll move to Annette to just give us from a learning and craft perspective, because we have been talking to the creative directors. So from a learning and craft perspective, what did the best entries demonstrate in terms of the structure, clarity, and depth of thinking? And from this, I'd like you to probably hint on how important it is to do, the background research. You might come up with an idea, but then, okay, you've come up with an idea, but then what is it solving? Where did the problem come from? Just really that depth of thinking. What did the best entries demonstrate in that regard?
Thank you, Petra. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar, but mostly the students who have been really dying to hear from the judges and UAA about the competition. For the question you're asking about the structure and clarity of the ideas students presented, I would say my former speakers have already hinted on some of the gaps. If you didn't have that already, there was a problem. The structure was okay. Like if you missed the research, which meant the structure of your ideas or your presentation had already gaps in the presentation. I didn't want to compare the two teams, like the agency and student teams. You could see the agency teams had the structure and everything. Their ideas were clear from the beginning to the end. They had the data, they knew how to use it. And then when you get to the student teams, you could see the gaps in research and how to use the research to come up with ideas and strategy and get to answer the brief. That was already a gap, you could see it. And for me, what was exciting in the room as the jury for 2025 was to see how the judges were trying to bridge those gaps for the students in case we don't meet. because besides the session, we left it open so that the students could bring out their ideas or presentation, so that from the beginning to the end, without cutting them short and the like, because you could find there was a lot of clutter. Good ideas were dying in a lot of clutter, and judges were trying to pick out and sort that out so that students don't lose out on the marks. When you look at the in-depth of most of the researchers, still there was a gap, but there was a very good use of found resources for the students. They used all the resources they could reach, for instance, in terms of props, maybe even computer techniques, and some of the software which they didn't have. You could see they strived and used the little they had to bring out their ideas, which was amazing. And maybe even that added to their creativity in terms of presentation and answering the brief. Back to you, Patrick.
Okay, thank you, Annette. I think it's really important to do give grace to the students versus the agency participants, because probably the agents have had a little bit of experience other than the students. But it's also good to see that the students used all resources that they could get to pull their idea to the front. And we talk about ideas, creative ideas and all that, but then are they actually viable and valuable? So to Patience, what made certain ideas valuable and viable, and not just creative? What entries turned out to be something that could actually be executed, say, the next week, the next day, something that you saw is not entirely a creative idea or head in the clouds, but then something that is grounded and something that is viable and valuable to any brand.
Thanks, Petra. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be back. I'm sorry about my video at the moment. I am getting that rectified. However, what
Sorry,
makes
Patience, your network is breaking. Your network is breaking. Maybe you can shift a little.
Is this any better?
It's still a bit shaky, but carry on to see if we can still pick up on something.
Sorry about that. I'm rectifying that. So for me, what made the ideas so valuable was the fact that these teams took a brief and were able to transform the idea to a relevant piece for the end consumer. It's not just about remembering, but it's also to ensure that the end receiver of this information will be able to take action. For me, the ideas were very relevant, and the majority of the ideas were very illuminating to paths of strategy, and even in the long term, if you're looking at implementation. So for me, that's 100% what stood out with the Young Silverbacks. Thank you. Let me rectify my camera as well, moving forward.
Sure. Thank you, Patience. For whoever didn't catch her first submission, she just spoke into how the participants' briefs, they were able to transform their ideas to relevant pieces in a way that the end receiver would be able to consume the action. So, Patience, still on you. I think we have talked about what has worked. Now let's get into perhaps what didn't work or come out strongly. And still with Patience, would you say the teams fully understood the briefs, or there was or misinterpretation was a key challenge? Perhaps this is something that the participants this year could look out for.
In my opinion, to a greater extent, if I was to say in terms of percentage, I'd say 70%. There was an understanding of the challenge. I think Peter spoke about how it was simplicity and stuff like that. So what we saw as judges was there were ideas that were brought to the table that had zero complexity, but were very, very brilliant. Also, I remember having a word with Idonia about how we can see trends in the new era, like the young silverbacks are thinking in very unconventional ways from what we've seen in previous marketing campaigns. They're adding color, they're adding creativity. So for me, that's what stood out. In the area of misinterpretation, we had teams, unfortunately, that were totally parallel to what we expected to see. However, through the sessions as they were presenting, we were able to pan a bit, and we're very hopeful that in the next Silverback Awards, we'll see, some improvement, if not 100% improvement.
And thank you, Patience. And to Annette, what common mistakes did you see in how the participants structured or communicated their ideas?
Thank you, Petra. Mistakes, should we talk about mistakes? Because yes, on my side, the students were expecting a one-on-one so that you take them through exactly what they did and what came out. That is on the student side, because most of them were really trying to dive into the industry. It was a very great experience, and it is a big opportunity to apply your theory, which you did in class, and a few practicals that you did in class into the real world. So the mistakes, of course, were like, I'm going to give you an example. Paul kept giving assignments to students during the session. Yeah, so that go back and do this, do that, which I think was a very big opportunity. And looking at in case this this getting back the student didn't happen, judges were trying to fill in those gaps already in the session. But when you look at, if you say the mistakes as the presenters made or participants, maybe just to note, remember we had over 52 teams which submitted or applied to participate in the Young Silverback last year. And in terms of structure, the mistakes which were glaring is cluttering the presentation, whereby judges would lose the flow of the presentation and they would always have to go back, drop this, get back to this. That structure really made some students lose, or participants lose marks during the session. And then when you get to vague ideas, you clutter, you bring in, maybe this will win or that will win. So you bring everything to the same table in the presentation. Though one is the gimmicks of colors and layouts, which are amazing, but the idea is not there, that goes back to the use of graphics and the like. You want to impress all the time, which is good. And then in terms of ethics were amazing. When you go to structures again, like people who are doing design, you saw the process of their logos and thinking and how they come up to the final colors, decision of colors, which was very good. Then when you get to especially what I spoke about already, is the research. Research gap was really, really evident, that you jump into an idea, you use what you have, thank you very much. But if you don't have research on how to use that data to come up to the idea, yeah, that was very, very evident. And for me, I think in future, if maybe on the side of UAA or people who are planning for the Young Silverback, which I'm usually part of, and then maybe the universities or institution where the students come from, yeah, there's really need for us to help, because at times maybe they don't have the resources to do the research, or they don't have the data, or they have the data and they don't know how to use it to come up with ideas. So that gap we need to fill up, especially when you're going to very soon, because for the Young Silverback for 2026 is about to come out. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Annette. I think you mentioned a very important fact, which is the research. I know we usually have about 24 hours, 36 hours to come up with these ideas, and we're under a time crunch. There's a lot of pressure. So I think the point of having simple ideas and having clarity can help with the research, because once your idea is not so complicated, the research as well is also not of huge magnitude, and then you can be able to beat the deadlines and handle the pressure properly. So for the creative side, Peter, at what stage do you think most creatives lost marks, for the insight, the execution, or the presentation?
Thank you, Petra. That's another good question. So I'd say that creatives, I think, dropped marks at every stage. There are marks awarded for the insight. There are marks awarded for the execution, and there are definitely marks awarded for the presentation. Why? Because these three things, well put together, then bring out the meaningfulness of the idea that you're trying to push and also sell. Now, the biggest gap we noticed, of course, was definitely at the insight stage. Because, like Anne clearly put it, sometimes creatives focus more on the visual appeal, how it looks like, the colors, the design elements, something that looks really flashy on the screen. But then when you look at the core of it, you sort of fail to get the meat of the entire communication or campaign. Yeah. So we had creatives losing marks at insight level, and yet they had very beautiful presentations in terms of visual appeal. They sort of delivered them very well, but you look at the end of the day and you're trying to look for that for the insight from which they drew the idea, and there was a bit of a gap. Then the other place that the teams, I think, also dropped marks to some extent was how they guided us through the presentation. So you could tell that they have everything, but then the arrangement of it did not come through well together. So this could be attributed to many things. You can blame time, you can blame a colleague, you can blame whatever. But at the end of the day, when you're presenting your ideas and they are not articulate, they are not cohesive in nature, sometimes you may lose the person on the other side. And it may not be because your idea is terrible or you didn't have a good insight, but maybe because of how you put the two together. So the key thing take out for me during that session was the best teams made it very easy to follow the story. Yeah, the insight was shared on the screen. The idea was clear. The execution was spot on. Everything moved through naturally. Yeah. So the key order I usually always share with creatives is start with a very strong human insight. And I think the last speakers have already spoken into this. Make sure your human insight is quite strong. And where does this start from? Start with understanding the problem that you're trying to solve. Fall in love with the problem before you fall in love with the idea. Once you understand the problem, it becomes easy for you to derive an insight from there, because then that is going to help you build a powerful idea, which will also help you make your visuals very spot on and meaningful. Because at the end of the day, we are looking for a story being told, and a story being told meaningfully. Yeah. So if someone can understand your idea before you even finish explaining it, that's usually a very good sign that you have actually scored all three. So to sum it up, yes, we had people, those who won at the 3 levels, those who didn't make it also lost at 3 levels. But the strongest part, and I think where we need to put a bit of more emphasis, is the concept or the element of the insight. Spend time on building the insight, spend time on creating the idea out of the insight, and then do your execution nicely, and your presentations will be wow. Thank you. Back to you, Petra.
Thanks, Peter. I think on that point of probably the creatives coming strong in the key visuals and things like that, would you suggest partnering? Perhaps, okay, speaking from an agency point, we have different departments. So say I'm a creative and then I want to go for the Young Silverback competition, perhaps partnering with someone from PR who's good with words, who's good with probably bringing ideas out using words, and you're good at bringing ideas out using, art. So do you think that is something, that a tip that you could give to our audience today?
Yeah. So the one thing I have learned and discovered over the years is that many times creatives fear to share their work with others because they fear for the ideas to be watered down. But it does not pay for you to sort of ring fence your idea, thinking you're going to shine alone in most cases, that never really ends well. So to your point, yes, collaboration is very critical. And strangely, things like insight, insight sourcing, or even idea generation may not necessarily come from a visual creative person. Sometimes it could come from a person from a different department. They could be PR, they could be media, they could be anything, you know. So learning how to collaborate with people with whom you work in a setting, whether it's an agency or a class setting, I think there's a lot of power in there because every extra brain brings on something that was never there before, however little it is. And sometimes that little is what the idea needs for it to actually land successfully. So to your point, I'll still say and emphasize for creatives out there, please learn to collaborate, learn to share ideas. And it's okay for your idea to be shot down, you know, while you're sharing. But through that shooting down, then comes the refinement of what leads you to an excellent piece of work that you have to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. I know you've been giving a little bit of advice and tips throughout your presentation, but we're kind of a bit short of time. So I'd like to get into how we can strengthen our future entries. So what advice would you give the participants on pushing their ideas further creatively next time or this year?
Number one, I'll start with, you know, there's usually a temptation of the first idea that strikes the room and everybody's excited. There's the temptation of settling with that and going with that. And I want to say this, push beyond the first idea. Yeah. Yes, I know you'll be working under pressure. Yes, I know you have little time. Yes, I know so many things are happening in that time. But when you allow yourself to push beyond the first idea, you allow yourself to dig deeper and go for the gold, right? Why? Because in most cases, that first idea that has hit the room and lit it up is what probably every other creative is thinking about. And you want to be different. You want to be unique. So if the first one lands immediately, take off time and say, okay, this is amazing. What more can we get? Dig deeper. Maybe, just maybe you're very close to the goal and you're settling with the first good thing. So that is my biggest piece of advice to creatives, yeah? And then the second one is what I've already spoken into, collaboration. Learn to collaborate. I can't stress that enough. And then number three is simplify your thinking as creatives. Complexity never really lands much. Once you've gotten your insight right, you have your idea, when it comes to the level of execution, simplify your thinking, simplify your execution, so that at the end of the day, even while you present the work, it's easy for the person that you're presenting to follow. So it's not just something that looks good on the screen, that looks good out there, but it actually carries sort of the weight and the depth of the insight from which you extracted the idea. When you do that, I believe you begin to see changes in the work that you do as you go as a creative. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. And Adonia, we have talked about strategy, clarity, and the likes, you know, the structure. From your perspective, what were the biggest execution gaps that you noticed? You know, where did the ideas lose impact in how they were presented?
Thank you so much, Petra. I think just to build off what Peter just broke down, I think cohesion and single-mindedness is something that was really lacking in most of the submissions that we saw. We did see it in a couple of them, but most of them were agency submission. There were some from the student side, but you could see it was just logical in terms of how it went, but it was never really intentionally planned, you know, to deliver to deliver the result that they were going for. So there were so many gaps in terms of building off the back of a big problem, and all the briefs that were shared had a problem. So how you piggyback off a problem to then move into, you know, finding an insight. There were gaps there. We found that some of the submissions that had the insight was literally in parallels with the problem. So being able to be very deliberate in knowing that my problem and insight have to be related, and then the type of audience that I'm actually targeting has to also be related to the insight, or needs to have a connection to the insight and then the problem. So that alone was maybe quicksand in terms of how fast most of the strategies really fell inward. But having said that, there were glimpses of quick thinking and glimpses of natural creativity, especially in logical thinking and following through in terms of this problem needs to be addressed like this. So without strong insights, most of the campaigns really came out with not so strong ideas. So in terms of the presentation of the entire plans that we saw, the work that we need to do, the work that the teams would need to do would be, how do you back one idea? You find one strong idea, or you find one strong train of thought and go very hard at it. There is no two ways about building a campaign. Once you back something, that is where that's where all your guns need to turn to, and that is where you need to fire. So that single-mindedness and cohesiveness when executing is really where the gaps were.
Thanks. I think I can still hold on to your Adonia, because you've talked about having, how do you need to back one idea or back one thought that you have, but then you'll find that they are overthinking ideas or over executing ideas. So for the future entries and with your experience in this field, how would you advise the team or the participants to not overthink it and not over execute? Is there like a checklist that you go through when you're coming up with any ideas for a campaign, and you'd be like, okay, this idea, I'm going to kill it because it's probably does not solve the business problem or the like? So any tips on how they can stop overthinking or oversharing or over executing? Yeah.
All right. So unfortunately, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I'm actually going to encourage them to overthink. I am going to encourage creatives to over-execute. I think once we actually overdo, that is when we begin to learn what we're truly capable of. But also that's when we begin to unlearn some of our bad habits. If we're actually very shy from over-executing or overthinking, then we're not going to be able to really learn where our limits are or what we're truly made of. So overthinking and over-executing should really be treated as avenues of self-learning, of learning what I'm really capable of as a creative and what I can actually execute. But here's the caveat: do not overdo it. You've got to be able to catch yourself going down a rabbit hole that is going to be endless. So you've got to have some clear milestones that if I reach this point, I've got to be able to drop this and take a new avenue, or drop this and actually get to working. So once you've discovered yourself, you realize that you will quickly know which idea is going to work and which one is not. And that is when overthinking and over-executing will come. And unfortunately, these take time. The creatives on the call will tell you that, the time it takes you to execute an idea now is about 10 times shorter than it was 10 years ago. But that is because you've learned yourself, you've learned your creative processes, and you've mastered them, and you believe in them. So once you have that, then the time will be shorter. But right now, you have to pay the school fees. Like they say, you've got to put in the time. Do not try to fly before you can walk. So overthink as much as you can. Write as many headlines as you want, design as many texts as you want, but catch yourself obviously being guided by what is the brief. Yeah, what are my timelines? So normally, as we're going about our own internal campaign developments, we normally ask ourselves 3 really critical questions. What's the problem we must address in the brief? Yeah. And the second question is this aligned to the overall campaign strategy? If you find yourself doing an idea, if you find yourself writing a radio ad, or even designing a master visual, the true test of whether the creative will work or the creative will effective is if you measure it against your strategy. If you measure it against your brief, you always have to work with the brief by your side. You have to constantly refer to the brief for small nuances and nuggets that you might have forgotten. So the brief is the North Star, it's the Bible when you're working on a campaign. And then finally, does it speak to the consumer as described in the brief? Once you have the answers to those 3 questions and they are positive, then you've got your campaign right. But if they're not, then you've got to go back and figure out at what point did I veer off? And then once you fix that, you just keep fixing, and then you'll be right back on track. Back to you, Petra.
Thank you. Annette, for the students, what practical steps can you give them to improve how they think and how they present their ideas for the next competition?
I think it has all been said. Overthinking and overthinking. And collaborations. Students lack, they think collaborating with someone in another institution is a step into answering the brief or executing the brief and or ideas. So collaboration, I think we need to blow that up into when we talk about collaboration. What does it mean? Does it mean to collaborate with someone to back up your weaknesses or the gaps within your skills? Is that the collaboration we're talking about? Are we talking about collaboration of people who are going to shoot down when your ideas so that you strengthen them? So that collaboration, I think, has to be well outlined so that to help the students to manage how they partner and engage with other within the teams, because one of the gaps also is ownership of your work, because there's a big mark on ownership. If the judges realize you don't own the work, or one person did the work and the other person is just escorting, there's that measure of skills when you come to present, especially at when you are pitching your ideas. So that collaboration, I think, has to be well outlined to strengthen and bridge up the gaps we are looking at. Do I see a collaboration between, for instance, that if they're developing ideas, to get someone from an agency to come and help them or pitch before they present? Yes, there's a lot of pressure during these competitions when the brief is being let out. We all know that design and print have only 24 hours and the film have only 48 hours. Yeah. So that pressure now comes in to test the best skills that you have. So usually there's that choice, which best ideas and which skills to bring forward when you're coming up with your presentations. I think that's where the challenge is. So yes, we know the students need a lot of help, or even people within the agency. We think they already know everything, but we've seen even agency people failing in some areas, which is very unfortunate. Yes, Petra, you're laughing, but it happens because of, I think, maybe the pressure of taking things for granted. Yeah. And for me, that collaboration is going to be important. Just thank you. But going back to maybe for me, the students is maybe what Adonia and Peter have said. Your idea, sticking to your idea and bringing it out and pushing it in 2 different dimensions when you're answering the brief. I think that would be very good for the next competition. Back to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Annette. And to Patience, for our future participants, so how they can strengthen their future entries, how would you say, from your past experience or with judging, I'm sure participants have sometimes missed the mark, in aligning the creativity and the business objectives. And this is probably from like the client side. So what kind of tips would you give on that? And then for those who didn't win, what mindset would you advise them to come with the next time?
Right, thank you, Petra. Again, apologies for the inconvenience earlier on. However, moving forward, what I think the gaps I saw, especially from a business perspective, was see, what we're doing is ideation, right? And you're telling a story. So, in my opinion, I feel like strategy should be at the forefront of everything the young silverbacks push at. Without strategy, you more or less um, lack sustainability, especially if you're looking into long-term campaigns and stuff like that. So I'd also urge that while they're looking into strategy, they should look at addressing the consumer problem. Annette spoke about it, and she mentioned about insight, and that's what we're driving at here. So ensure that your briefs are able to address consumer problems. Also, um, I think it would be best to structure these approaches through innovation, like take time, sit with this thing, think outside the box. I don't think there is anyone that's a creative that will tell you to think inside the box. So essentially, think out of the box, bring ideas to life that no one would even fathom. I feel like that's where the gusto is in this thing. Also, in the business sense, I would say to achieve professional success, you need to have measurable business outcomes. So, in the last question you asked me, asked if there was a misinterpretation. So, to be able to push that, to be able to have those measurable business outcomes to achieve that success, you need to thoroughly go through this thing and understand if you clearly see what you're addressing. For the ones that didn't win, okay, we're all winners, guys, but for those that didn't win, I feel like what was lacking was a transformation of those abstracts into concrete. So, from my end, the advice would just be to integrate a bit of purpose to your creativity. Don't just blindly go into this thing. Yeah. Thanks, Petra. Back to you.
All right, thank you. Guys, the chat box is open. If you have any questions, please ask. And at this juncture, I'd just like to welcome any questions from the audience. The question could be general, or you can pose it to a particular judge. All right, I think we have done a good job here with answering the questions through whatever presentation that we have had. So for our judges, before we close, I just want each and every one of you, because we have given tips throughout all our presentations and submissions, just give one golden tip to every young silverback, creative, every young silverback participant who hopes to be part of the competition this year. Starting with you, Adonia. Adonia, you're muted. Huh?
Yeah, thank you, Petra. I think my parting shot is really going to be not just to the young creatives, who are still in university, but also the guys who are starting out, perhaps first year in an agency or even in a creative role. And my parting shot, I mean, we've had a really, really serious conversation about strategy, about cohesive thinking, about all these things. But I think we might have forgotten a fundamental truth about what we do and why we do it. And, the fuel that keeps us really, really going at it, even with the thousands and thousands of rejections that we hear and get every week. I think it's important that we remember to have fun, in everything that we do, in the creativity, in the brainstorms, and everything that we touch. Remember to play. Yeah. Don't just play, play smart, play hard. Play with big ideas. Never play with small ones. The small ones are not going to, give you the impact. Play with big ideas. Let the world see that, you've got, big brains. Never share small ideas. Share ideas that make you really come off, that make your idea really seem like the type of creative who only works with, big balls. Show the world that you have big, gigantic balls. Be very, very confident and audacious in your craft. Never act like you don't belong in a room. Even when you don't, learn to fake it. Learn to fake it and learn to believe in yourself until you actually belong in that room. That is the only way. And those are the few things that are really, really important besides the actual app. Thank you, Petra.
Thank you, Antonia, for those parting shots. I think it's very important to have fun. I personally had a lot of fun while I was doing the competition. Yes, Annette, you can give us one golden tip.
Only one? Can there be two? Yes. Thank you, Patra. My golden tip would be students and any other participants. I'm concentrating a lot on students because those are the gaps I really always try to fill in for this competition. For the students, one is don't forget to use your environment when you're coming up with ideas and insights. Don't try to go into executions that require a big budget, Keep your ideas simple and use the best skills that you have, like you've always done, which just keep that steady. It comes out and stands out for you all the time. And maybe the other tip would be, yes, putting your best foot forward and collaboration, owning your work, stand by your work all the time. Yes, we'll be swayed and turned upside down, but if you stand by your idea all the time without shivering or triggering, and always feeling the skills, the skill gaps that you have when you're putting partners. Don't build teams because someone's your friend or you've been coerced to be part of, this person is coercing you to be part of their team. And you lose out on the contribution, or your contributions are not being vivid, and they don't come out vividly in the presentation or when you're coming up with ideas. Team up with someone who's going to respect your ideas, embrace your weaknesses or strength so that you come up and do a better job of presentation. Back to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Annette. And over to you, Peter. Your one golden tip.
Thank you, Petra. I'll say this like in a very raw way. You know that advert you see, that one advert you see, and you actually laugh, or you look at it and you are emotionally touched, and at the end of the day, you say, "That's so true." I've heard that statement many times. People say, "That's so true," with whichever emotion it has brought to you. That statement, "that's so true," is where true insight actually lies. So for me, my golden tip to creatives out there is stay curious about people. Because at the end of the day, creativity is really about understanding human behavior. The more you observe people, how they live, how they think, what they love, what frustrates them, the better your insights become. Okay, so stay curious, keep learning, and most importantly, enjoy the journey. Because at the end of the day, reality check, guys, your imagination is actually your biggest asset. So keep learning people, keep studying human behavior, and keep falling in love with problems around people, because it's only through that that you'll derive the strongest insights, which will then lead you to the best ideas. Thank you. Over to you, Petra.
Thank you, Peter. I think it's really important to stay curious, because when you're curious, that's how you can come up with really good and big ideas. Patience, your one golden tip and parting shot.
My one golden tip. So, drawing back to the last Silverbacks challenge, I think we as the judges can agree we saw some content there that was physically and mentally just stimulating in a very good way. So I'd like to urge the young Silverbacks to continuously embrace this process. We're young and we need bold ideas. So embrace the process. Don't wait for your inspiration in the linear things. Look outside. I mean, inspiration is everywhere around you. The ideas you're looking to bring to life are everyday situations around you. So enjoy your time as you put in the work. Also, guys, it's not reducing to ask for help. Please collaborate. there was a bit of mismatch. So yeah, just bring a bit more collaboration to the table and you're good to go. Thanks, Petra.
Thank you so much to our judges. We've come to the end of our session. There have been keywords that have come out this whole conversation: is strategy, structure, clarity, creativeness, collaboration, having fun, and in Adonia's words, have big balls and push for your ideas, have confidence in whatever that you come up with. From my own personal experience, the Silverback competition was really fun. It was very insightful. It pushed us beyond our boundaries. We worked on an idea in 24 hours, and I think, yeah, that rush was worth it. And standing up on the stage when Peter awarded us our medals, that was amazing. I should have won my medal today, but I have a silverback here to represent that. Yeah, thank you all for joining this call. I hope you have learned a thing or two, picked a leaf or a tree and a whole forest, because what the judges have discussed today was very insightful. Nicole, do you have any communications from UAA before we close?
Yes, Petra, thank you. I would like to thank our judges from 2024 and 2025. Thank you for making time for this session. And I would like to add on to what they have actually said. The things that the judges look out for, the judging criteria, there is research, the depth and application for it. Peter and Annette have said it so many times. There's strategy, which Adonia has also mentioned, and patience as well. There's creativity, how original is your idea, the quality of the work, the innovation, how forward thinking is the solution to the problem that has been presented to you. Then there is relevance to that is to the brand, to the medium, to the target audience. If I am the competition that I have chosen, the category is digital, and I am rather print, and I am going to show how to present my idea. I should not present it in a way that it would look like on a flyer as opposed to the way it should look like on a billboard, because that's what I'm going out for. You need to think about where your application of this particular message is going to be and make sure that it fits that particular medium. Then the last one is presentation and collaboration. I like that the speakers have also talked about this. You get points for showing up, you get points for understanding the brief, and you get points for how coherent you are during the presentation and showing that the two of you as a team, there was balanced contribution. It was not only one person who did all the work and just picked someone to just come and show face. So there has to be that show of proper teamwork. I think the judges can attest and say they saw actual participants fighting at the front of at the stage there. So and it was actually funny, and that's not how it works. In real life experience, you're going to have to work with a team. You don't work by yourself. So if you cannot prove that you can work with other people, yeah, you are losing. And Peter said that ideas can come from anyone. It doesn't have to be a creative like you. There are good ideas that have come from even janitors, because you remember who your target audience is. If that janitor is the target audience for what you are trying to put out there, he has insights that he can give you and will contribute to your big idea. So these things, as we look forward to the 2026 competition, we hope that you will keep these things at the back of your mind. Other than giving you real life experience and connecting young creatives to their employers, this whole competition is to prepare you to compete on a global level. Like Lions and the Young Luries, the same rules that we use are the same ones that are used by them. So I'm hoping that all that has been said today has been very useful, and we are going to see the young creatives bringing their A game this year. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to our judges. Hope to meet during our season. Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Petra. Have a good one too.